everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Happy Mental Health Awareness Week. We have got quite a bit going on this week to celebrate with the Mental Health Foundation and everybody else who is getting on board with Mental Health Awareness Week. Tomorrow we have a lunch and learn session with psychologist and writer Susie Redding. But today I am absolutely thrilled that Sophie Says Official, I'm reading it there, that Esther Marshall is joining me, who is the writer of the Sophie Says book series. So I'm just going to get Esther on with us. Hopefully she should come soon. Oh! Good morning, Esther. How are you doing?
How are you?
I'm fine. I have to say right off, I'm in a bit of a cold fog, but coming out of it the other end. But really pleased to be chatting with you this morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I had my son was up a few times in the night, which he isn't normally. He's got a bit of cold, so just one of those mornings where you wake up thinking, ah.
I know. Yeah, we've had exactly the same here. My daughter just can't get rid of this cough, and so she's basically awake most of the night, and then of course wants to sleep in the morning. So yeah, well, I think we're all doing our best to try and get through it.
Parenting and weather is.
Yeah, exactly. I know you're pretty busy this week with lots of activities for mental health awareness. So thanks for making the time. What are some of the things that you're up to?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I love doing all of these. It's really exciting. It just feels like a nice chat, which is a welcome break from meetings. Yeah, so this week, Mental Health Awareness Week, and the Sophie Says books obviously concentrate like massively on mental health, and specifically with the fact that my sister passed away from illness. So really trying to do everything I can to kind of raise awareness. Started with a campaign around just raising awareness of statistics within children's mental health. So things like 1 in 6 children 5 to 16 will have mental. We've had so many people message saying they had no idea, and we've then also done a research around parents, and we did a commission research of 1,000 families in the UK, of which 80% of those parents said they're worried about their child's mental health, but only a third of those parents have anything at home to teach children about it, because people, understandably, I get it, too scared to bring up the conversation in case they make it worse. So I'm a parent, but also as somebody really passionate about this, went kind of in a 4-day research kind of cleanse of what can I find out there, what could I use to teach my son about this stuff. It delved quite far to find things, and they're not necessarily in the places where you might find them. So I've kind of partnered up with different psychologists, teachers, charities, use their expertise, put together toolkits, lesson plans, activities that parents can do with their children, that teachers can do with children in school, all to help them talk about their feelings, mental health in a fun kind of proactive way. Yesterday, so there's like a lot of activity around that this week because of Mental Health Awareness Week. Later on in the month, doing quite a bit because it's Mental Health Awareness Month in the States as well. So just trying to get these resources because they're free, downloadable, just everything around inclusion. If you want to buy some of the stuff around the feeling cards or the emotion, get some beautiful ones. They're £15-20. Why should not all children have access to this kind of stuff for free? We've had it beautifully designed, so it's just good for a child or whatever their kind of background. And I just want as many kids to be able to benefit from it, and parents and teachers as well, the resources. So yeah, that's what I'm busy with this week.
Well, I mean, all of this is much needed, and I definitely want us to talk a bit more about some of those specific resources. But I wanted to just touch on the figures that you were talking about, because as you said, Yeah, a lot of people don't know. And I think what's really shocking, you cited the 2020 figures of 1 in 6. And just at 2017, we were 1 in 8. So, things are getting worse, and they seem to be getting worse rapidly. I
Yeah.
mean, what's your point of view on that? And what can we be doing aside from these resources? What needs to change at a fundamental level to get to the root of this?
Yeah, so I think for me, which is why I'm really concentrating on the early years, we need to start.
Mm.
And my whole thing that I say is we need to be proactive rather than reactive. There's
Mm.
a lot of stuff out there for teenagers that and young adults around if you have a mental illness, what you can do. For me, it's we need to be talking to our children at age 18 months to 2 and onwards around feelings, around things that don't necessarily say mental health,
Yeah.
but you have a good mind. How can you look after your body? How can eating, exercise, art, talking, all these things that you'll find in the resources that we don't mention mental health once.
Yes.
It's these positive, proactive things that we can embed, like they do with maths and English. Like let's do it with mental health as well. It's
Yeah.
it's simple or more simpler when you're younger to be able to embed these things rather than when you're older. And for me, it is that proactive approach with the early years, which is why I'm really focusing on
Yeah.
that. And that for me is where I could be a game changer for the next generation.
I mean, I'm so aligned with you on so much of this thinking around the prevention piece, around targeting children when they're younger than, by the time you reach adolescence. And also, I'm really careful as much as possible with Happy Marlo to not talk about mental health, but rather to talk about emotional well-being. And just as you said, talking about feelings and mood and things that just feel a bit more accessible to the child, but also, and you referred to this before, around making it less scary for parents, because mental health sounds scary, or as you were talking about, you didn't use the word stigma, but I think there's a bit of stigma and fear around, oh, my child is struggling a bit and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go because I don't necessarily want to go to the doctor because that feels like a step too far perhaps. And then there might be fear around, medications being prescribed, or it becomes this big thing. And so that's why I'm really excited about the work you're doing and what we're doing with Happy Marlo, that just feels a bit more accessible, feels a bit more gentle, and not scary, or it's kind of inclusive, as you said, in the sense of how we're actually talking about this stuff.
Without a doubt. And I think it's not necessarily also parents that think, oh, my child's struggling. It's also parents, any parent, they're like, oh, I'm not even sure I can talk to my child about feelings because I'm going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Where to go. So that's what I say, like with the before we launch the Education Hub, but with the books and the activity book that goes with it, the activity book at the bottom of every page has something for the parent to say. So it's like, don't worry, if you're getting any of our stuff, you won't make it worse.
Yeah.
They would say, providing a toolkit to navigate the trickier conversations. Use the words that are in the books and then use the words that are in the activity book. It's like a script for you.
Yes.
Make it this happy conversation or this fun conversation. And then the child brings up what they're feeling and you can then react to that rather than you then thinking you made it worse.
Yeah, we definitely found that with our research with parents say, when we're asking them, what would you like to see more of? And exactly that phrase was like, I don't know how to have these tricky conversations. Can you help me with that? So it sounds like that's definitely a universal theme.
Yeah. So one of the main resources that we put into this is the Sophie Says Safe Corner.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Sophie Says It's Okay Not to Be Okay book, Jamie is the little boy, and I really wanted it to be a boy to address the toxic masculinity subject. But he's the one that's not feeling good, and his friends can't try and help him feel better. And throughout the book, again in a fun way, they try and find his safe space so that he can talk. So the zoo, for the other one it's the fun fair, for the other one it's at home eating treats. It's a very fun kind of thing. But introducing that concept of find a safe space. And what we're saying to parents is it's not that your home isn't safe, but get them to build this safe little corner. And we've got all the resources on there. They've got like cutouts of Sophie and Bunny. You've got a little sign that you can put up. You've got emotion cards on there. And then even more than that, all of the instructions, we've had Sophie animated. So Sophie tells the kids about
Right.
what the parents, teachers don't even have to say anything. It's all done, and then it's that familiarity of these characters that are making this. Oh, I want to set up a safe corner, and oh,
Yeah.
then we can go there and we can talk, or we can not talk, but we could think. All of these kind of things that just make it part of your everyday life.
Mm.
That then will just build this resilience in these
Yeah.
kids that we never had when we were growing up.
No, I mean, it wasn't talked about at all. And I think the peer-to-peer piece is really, really powerful. And also, as you said, it's around making it fun and, mixing this up in a sense of play and exploration rather than now we need to, have a very serious talk about feelings,
Yeah.
which is off-putting for everyone involved.
Oh,
I have your books here. So I've got your your first one, I Can, I Will, and It's Okay Not to Be Okay. I'd love to hear a bit about your journey to writing these books and your process, because obviously when we were catching up last week, you were working in the corporate world before. So how did you come to become a children's writer?
Yeah, I can't ever see that was where I thought I would be doing. Yeah, I kind of fell into the corporate world. I studied kind of geography and sustainability at university, very much like wanting to make the world a better place. And I fell into a corporate that had a really good kind of graduate program around sustainability and had a real mission around all of their brands. So it's not necessarily a corporate. I always used to joke, like, I'd never go to another one. I'm just the biggest kind of social businesses that there is. So I didn't do your standard kind of like marketing roles or sales or anything like that. I did very kind of different strategy, HR, but innovation roles, sustainability, advocacy around gender equality, and diversity and inclusion roles. And ended up being kind of a global lead for gender diversity for the global company. So diversity inclusion was my bread and butter. It was all day, every day. What can we do? And then 2.5 years ago, I had my son and I went on maternity leave. And I just thought, I've been doing diversity and inclusion for adults and employees for years. But my goodness, children's literature is way further behind than the corporate world was in this time. It's like, well, again, then we're being totally reactive because all the problems that are coming into corporate world with employees and making them feel included are happening because we're not being proactive with our kids.
Yes.
And our kids can't see themselves in the books. How on earth can they then achieve what they want? And it was making me so angry. And I was, all the time I was only like jumping on the tube, getting into work, coming home, working long hours. And then suddenly I had my son and I could explore where I was living and would go to the local library. And my son was the only one represented in these books. And I look around and all these other kids, all they're looking at are kids that don't look like them in these books. And I was just like, no, this cannot be. And so I tried to find other stuff, and there are some books, and it's got better. This was nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find the book that really spoke to me, especially because gender for me is such a big thing, about why, mummy will also be at work, and, there might be daddies that aren't at work, and there might be mummies and mummies, and there might be daddies, like all of this stuff that I just wanted him to understand that you will meet a lot of people that don't look like you or sound like you.
Yeah.
And that's a real amazing thing. Learn from them, enhance yourself through them. So that's where I Can, I Will came from. And my sister who I was talking to said, you like to write. I always did. I always wrote like therapeutically. Why don't you write the book that you want to read to him? And amazing illustrator, I'll illustrate the book. Oh, what a wonderful kind of project to do on maternity leave, because my brain needs to kind of be going. And as my son, when he was a baby, it was a little bit boring, if I'm honest. I loved him and I was doing everything for him, but there wasn't really anything intellectually stimulating going on.
Apart from the chase, right? I always remember when I was on maternity leave, I'd kind of, my milestone, I've got through the day and now I can watch the chase.
Oh, that's fun.
That was my mental stimulation for those early months.
I didn't do that, but maybe I'll take that on board. Yeah, so I basically try to look positively of, my son is up 6, 7 times in the night. I could either be exhausted or I could look at it as I've technically been given the gift of time.
Mm.
So why don't I use that time in the night to write this book that I want to read to him? And so that's what I did. And then very soon after, my sister went into hospital again for third time, suffered heavy illness. At the time they thought it was depression, but then it got re-diagnosed as bipolar. And she said to me, look, I don't think I can do the illustrations. I'm just not in the right headspace for it, but please go ahead and do it. And I'd love to see the process. So it was really nice when I'd visit her in hospital that I could take her, is this illustration and do you like this? And, it was just a really lovely conversation for her to have and both of us to have when, those mental health wards are hell.
Mm.
So that was lovely, and she came out of hospital and she got to read that book to my son, which was really special. I didn't realize how special that would be because a few months later, in January last year, she decided that it was too much, and yeah, she went up, she took her life. So we lost her at the age of 28 last year. So 3 weeks later, we then went to lockdown. So it was quite a.
I'm so sorry, Esther.
But in the 2 days after she passed away, I couldn't sleep.
Mm.
I was writing a different second book, which is now going to be the third book. It just didn't feel right. And so that's where Sophie Says Okay Not to Be Okay came to me. And it was just kind of all the messages that we'd spoken about how she wished young children would understand feelings and that it's okay not to be okay, and all of those.
I've lost Esther, can you hear me? I can't hear you. I've lost your sound. Not sure what's happened. I can't hear you at all. You just kind of went out. Should we come off and go back on again?
Hello.
Ah, there you are.
So sorry, I don't know what happened.
That's okay. I can hear you loud and clear now.
Okay, I'm in, right?
Yes, you're right.
I got up to because I just carried on talking.
I'm trying to think where you got to. Oh, God. Now my cold fog's coming in as well. So I was like, oh, how does this work?
Probably that my sister unfortunately passed away, and so I wrote
Yes. Yes.
after she left us, not knowing that a global pandemic was on its way.
Yes.
And that so many parents would be worried about their children's mental health. And I suddenly thought, okay, well, I think this is going to really help people. And back at work, I was thinking, well, this was mine and my sister's idea together. This is part of her legacy.
Mm.
I want to build that. And so I handed in my notice. And now I'm working on this kind of full time to really try and embed, as much as I possibly can, a legacy for my sister, but also embed real, true understanding of children's feelings and resilience in the next generation so that we don't have this issues again, especially with everything they've been through in the past year and a half. So yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but
no, don't worry at all. one of the things which you had said, and I think your sister had said as well in your conversations, it struck me that there's almost like this disconnect between childhood and adulthood. For us as individuals, it's like you're a child and then you're an adult, and they're separate things, or any problems you might have in childhood will just be fixed magically as an adult. Which I find, I'm not sure how that comes to be, but I find that really fascinating and curious. And when I was thinking about, Happy Marlowe's role in being part of the solution, I always say that, we're all human beings with just different ages. And of course, everything that we experience growing up is going to have an impact or play a role in the kind of adults that we become. And so I think the work that you're doing and the work that we're looking at doing is so important in terms of that prevention piece, and just really supporting solid foundations for children to grow up. Because I get excited by the thought of, if we're able to nail this, all of us in our own ways, what kind of adults might those children become when they don't come with the baggage? They're almost like primed to segue into their own adulthoods, full of all of their potential and ready to live the lives that they want to lead, rather than having to deal with or come to terms with or whatever, numb it, or because some of these, not having to have that burden. I'm really excited about the possibility of that, and it's obvious that you are too.
Yeah, and I think also, I think we should say to children, it's okay to have that baggage. It's just how you work through that baggage.
Yeah.
You don't have to let what has happened to you in childhood then kind of ruin everything. It can be something that basically adds to your life, gives you that extra, crucial, I guess, and it adds to kind of who you are.
Yeah.
And it's something that I only realized later on in life, but we are who we are. People can like it or they can't. I don't really mind. But this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to help. And I think that's really what I'm trying to do with the book that Sophie says, I can, I will. The second book, Sophie says, okay, not to be okay. And the third, Sophie says, be proud of who you are. Basically, what I'm trying to do is, if the only thing that children learn in their childhood is these mantras, really important mantras, like, it's okay not to be okay, be proud of who you are, then when they have those moments whereby they're thinking, oh, I can't do this, they can think, I can, I will. Or I'm having a really bad day, it's okay not to be okay. Or they're being bullied at school, like, no, I'm proud of who I am. That hopefully it will build a resilience in the next generation that can help them into their adulthood. But they can still deal with what's happened in their childhood. That's okay, but it builds this resilience.
The resilience piece is key, because there is no utopia of childhood or of adulthood. It's life, it's the reality. And definitely I talk about the inevitable ups and downs of childhood, or the likelihood that you don't kind of come out of childhood unscathed. It's unrealistic to think otherwise. But exactly as you say, it's like having these tools or these mantras or these resources in the moment, so that they don't have to completely drag you down, but rather it's like, yeah, that was really rubbish, or that made me feel this way. And having a language or a narrative around that, rather than maybe suppressing it or getting really angry and being stuck in that anger or whatever it might be. But yes, it's that acknowledgement piece of, as you say, it's all of the feels are good, but they're okay, is how we work with them.
Yeah, and I actually think that will then help parents and teachers alike, because we're parents or talking to teachers all the time. We weren't equipped with this stuff growing up, so we're also learning. So this can then help. I've had so many messages from parents saying, this book has helped me understand me. I wish I would have had this book when I was a kid, or it's even helped as an adult. And I think that's really powerful, because we are reliant on parents and teachers, educators, psychiatrists to be able to help our children.
Yeah.
But if, as the saying goes, it's, you have all these job interviews, but with a child you get given them and there's no job interview, right? And you've got to learn all these skills. There's a huge amount of pressure on parents, and that's sometimes too much for a lot of people. But if we can do it in a way that it's also helping the parents,
Yeah.
I believe, I mean, there's a lot of times where I think like negatively, but in this kind of thing, it's like, I believe this could be changing
Yeah.
the society as a
Yeah.
whole.
I completely agree with you. And I think it's around empowerment for children, parents, adults, all of us in society. And it's also around agency too.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I'm really passionate about this generational trauma and having an opportunity to break that, and what might life look like for all of us if we're able to make a dent in that.
Yeah.
One of the things you and I spoke about before is very much about it's going to take all of us and collaborations. And I'd love to hear a bit about some of the partners that you worked with on these new resources for your education hub.
Yeah. So one of the mental health charities called Happy Space, a phenomenal charity doing amazing things, working with children. Their main thing is older children, but we sat and we worked together on this whole toolkit around the different types of your mental health and your well-being, and coming up with fun different ways to put that out in content. And that was super exciting. So it's like it goes through a whole thing that parents or teachers can print out, and there's a parent section, there's a children's section, and it goes into all different things. So that was really great to kind of work with them. And I've had just kind of individual teachers who kind of been there from the start, look over things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does a lesson plan necessarily look like? What are the main things that you need out of it? What are the aims? What are the, you know, there's all this wording within teaching that helps for that,
Okay.
what they need to do. And so we've laid it all out like that. So it's as if they would download any other lesson plan
Yes.
teacher's resource. And then with, again, some educational psychiatrists that since I've started have just been kind of behind the cause of Sophie Says, that have looked over some of the wording that Sophie used in the animation. I just wanted to make sure it was really uplifting, but also in a way that wasn't going to cause any harm or anything.
Yes.
Kind of everything's kind of been looked over, and just everyone's been unbelievable, giving their time, their energy, their resource, their knowledge. I've learned so much, and I think as well we don't necessarily say this about ourselves, but I feel really proud, like really proud of what we have achieved with this, and
Yeah.
it can make, from an inclusion point of view, from a feelings, mental health, empowerment point of view, and that's get the word out there to as many people as possible, because we've put the funding behind it, so these are resources that are just as good as if you would pay quite a lot of money for
Yeah.
them. And quite right that children whose parents necessarily can't afford that should be given this access. And that's really kind of what I'm doing this week, and we'll be doing for this year and onwards. Of please, and we'll be doing a lot more partnerships and partnering with a nutrition charity for children as well, in the next few months, around looking at some resources we can do there around like meal plans and
Okay.
things they can put up on their walls that they can write it in and they can feel like it's theirs and really get involved. Yeah, people have just been unbelievable at kind of giving their time and energy and really making sure that children get what they need in this space,
Yeah.
because I'm shocked at how little there was out there.
I really love your whole body approach. And the nutrition piece sounds really interesting too. And by the way, you should be proud of yourself. This is really incredible, important work. How should we access it, Esther?
So if you go onto Sophie Says Official, all the links are in our bio, or the website's www.sophiesays. Click on the Education Hub. It's all there. Yeah, I just please go and have a look, download whatever you want, send it on to people, and let me know how you find everything. Send me pictures of you with children, obviously faces or anything, but yeah, how people are finding it. I've already great feedback, so I'm really excited to see the impact it will have.
I'm excited for you. Now we have a question. Let me see. This is from Tamara, I think. Do you have books in multiple languages? This empowering message should be spread among different countries and languages.
I wish. I'm in talks with different people around translations, but it's quite difficult when you don't have a massive kind of publishing company behind you, and it's just me, as you can see from all the books behind me. But I am around it because, again, on the inclusion piece, it's
Yeah.
that kids do have. So I am speaking to different people in different countries. It's in the pipeline. I can't happen soon, but it's without a doubt something that's on my to-do list of this needs to happen.
I have no doubt it will come. Now, you have lots going on this month, but you have a very exciting event with Claudia Winkleman later this month, which I'm signed up for. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, I got a call from a CEO from a charity called Ort, which is very much looking at education outside of the classroom, so teaching important lessons around not just English, maths, etc., but teaching skills, like real life skills, which I'm all for, because I think that's what the education system should be. I mean, do I remember the maths that I learned at school? No. If I need it, do I look at a YouTube video? Yes. But would I like to have learned some resilience? Yes.
Yes.
That's a whole nother conversation. But really like to do something around mental health, because they're really worried about a lot of the children's mental health at the moment. So they'd like to run a campaign to get my books into many different schools. And what they'd like to do is do an interview around the story behind it, because it's a very personal story and it kind of lends itself as to why I'm so passionate about it. It's not just I've gone and written this. This is there's a legacy piece here that I'm desperately trying to kind of fulfill. And he said to me, would love to get somebody to interview you around this. Who would be your ideal person?
Oh, right.
And I was, I don't know, but basically somebody who would be able to ask the questions, who has the kind of journalistic skill, because this kind of interview is not going to be a funny, it's going to be probably quite intense, quite candid, triggering. So you need someone like that. And I put out a few names, didn't think anything of it, just thought we'd just have a nice, even if it's somebody that they knew from the charity that could interview me, then so be it. But somehow, I still don't know how, they managed to get Claudia Winkleman. And so I'm going to be interviewed by her around similar to this conversation, why I wrote the books, why this is so important to me, why I've now left my job in order to make this so important, and kind of raise awareness and spread awareness of the topic. So yeah, nervous, excited, slightly strange that we moved house during the pandemic, because I have a 2.5-year-old and a tiny flat. We've moved much further out to get a bit more space. None of my friends have even been to my new place. I haven't sat on a sofa with any of my friends yet. The first person in a year and a half that I will it will be Claudia Winkleman. But I guess everyone says this year is unprecedented, so we might as well add another unprecedented thing.
Yeah, just go for it. All
a bit surreal, but very exciting. And if it helps to raise awareness and helps children, then I'm all for it.
All about platforms. And I think you said you were talking or in messages with somebody that you knew, saying she's huge in this country, and she really is. I'm a big fan of hers, and I had one very minor interaction with her, and to me I just thought she's kindness and empathy personified. So I think you will be in very safe hands.
Good. I'm really pleased to hear that, because you don't know, these massive, it's massive, right?
Yeah.
And who am I? And we're just going to be sitting in the station. It's all very surreal. But
I can't wait for you to tell me about it afterwards, because as I said, she came across as just pure class. So I think you're going to have a really, really lovely, positive experience.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. Thank you.
No worries. Well, we're coming to the end of our time together. I've really enjoyed this.
Me too. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, finish with one question, really. What does Mental Health Awareness Week or the month mean to you?
For me, it's the start of something, right? I am never really too much of a fan around these weeks or days, because there's so much stuff that happens and then it goes away. This is never going to go away for me. This is forever. But if it means that more people are watching this week, then I'll start it then. But this is forever for me.
Well, I wish you all the best. I know you're already creating this legacy that's so important to you, and I'm really excited to be your friend on this journey and see what we can do together.
I can't wait.
Thanks, Esther. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
So much.
Bye.
Bye.